Right now I'm walking atop of 30 feet of water. No, I'm not a politician. I'm actually walking on top of a floating mat of moss. Right down under my feet is a thick, luxuriant mat of this beautiful moss known as sphagnum. Sphagnum is like a sponge. It holds lots of water and provides a floating habitat for a great variety of plants and animals to live in. This habitat, known as bogs and fens, covers over half of Canada and is found through northern regions all through the world. Today on Wild by Nature, we're going to visit this floating world and meet a creature covered in poison spines, one of the world's tiniest dragonflies, and several wildflowers with an insatiable appetite for insects. Join me, Michael Runtz, as we explore the amazing floating world of bogs and fens. I got one! This is one of the treasures you find in bogs. It's a tiny damselfly known as the bog sprite. Now you can see this beautiful little insect has a incredibly shiny green thorax. It's the back of the upper part of the body, blue below that, and a bright blue tip to his abdomen, to the long thin part of the body. There's another sprite found here in the same habitat that looks almost identical. It's called the sedge sprite, but the sedge sprite has black marks on that blue final tip of the body. This one has a clear blue patch. So this is the bona fide thing. It is the beautiful little bog sprite. The things that goes along with visiting a bog in summer are the visits of flies like deer flies and horse flies that pursue you for your blood. These are both females, by the way, and the females need the blood as a protein feast for their eggs, which are developing inside them. So right here I've got a wonderful deer fly with banded wings and beautiful green eyes, and a much bigger horse fly that are right now busily burrowing their proboscis into my skin to get at my blood. I'm going to scream in pain right now. Ouch! Pardon me! Look at the blood coming out. Wow, here it comes back. Didn't quite finish this meal. Too bad the bog sprite doesn't eat deer flies though, eh? There are several types of birds you can expect to find in bogs and bog edges. Well, right over here is a family of gray jays. Gray jays are one bird you'll find in bogs and bog edges through the entire year. Now right now the young are very much different in appearance than the adults. They're quite a dark color, while the adults have a beautiful light gray and white and dark pattern that makes them quite distinctive. Look at that. And there they go. Bog sprites, bog laurel, bog bean. A number of plants and animals are named after this habitat. But what exactly is a bog? Bogs are really unique floating habitats. They start off actually as open water. What happens is a small sedge starts growing by the water's edge, by the shore, starts spreading out. It's got a floating root system. Mosses, sphagnum mosses attached to that, eventually form a floating carpet. Through time, that mat gets thicker and thicker and thicker. By the shoreline, if the water's not too deep, the mat eventually goes right down to the bottom. Through time, the mat extends farther and farther from the shore. The amount of open water gets smaller and smaller. Right here we've got a classic bog. At the very edge of the bog, far out from the shoreline, the mat's fairly thin with lots of water down beneath it. In the middle, there's still a pool of water here, but through time that'll get smaller and smaller and eventually be a complete mat. As the mat gets thicker, a number of shrubs and small trees start growing on it. Now you'll find the same kind of floating habitat with many of the same kind of plants in another type of area called a fen. Bogs and fens are really quite similar, and there's actually a lot of debate as to what separates the two. In most cases, perhaps the most definitive rule is that a bog has its water input primarily from rainfall. Fens, on the other hand, have water input from streams or lakes and moving water carrying nutrients. Bogs tend to be more acidic, and the main ground cover is a sphagnum moss. Fens have a little more basic conditions to them and tend to be more sedge dominated. But apart from that, the two habitats are really hard to tell apart. It doesn't matter though, bogs and fens are both equally amazing habitats. Besides being acidic, bogs are also low in oxygen and very poor in nutrients. Now with all these problems facing plants, it's amazing that there are any plants here at all, you'd think. Yet there are lots of plants. Now there's one kind of plant, or a group of plants in particular, that's really dominant in the bogs, and that's the heath family. That includes things like leatherleaf, Labrador tea, the laurels, bog rosemary also. They have pretty unusual root systems for a flower. Down at the bottom, in the mosses, besides their roots, there's also a great network of fungus on those roots. And that fungus spreads all through the bog mat further. It behaves like a pipeline, bringing in nutrients, things like phosphorus and nitrogen, so these plants have helpers on their roots that help collect those hard-to-find nutrients from the bog mat. Now, in addition to pulling in nutrients from farther afield for these plants, the fungus also does a very unusual thing. It actually blocks the uptake of certain types of elements, things like aluminum, that actually are quite harmful to the plant in large doses. So besides acting like a gatherer of nutrients, the fungus also behaves like a little detox center, stopping the uptake of things that might hurt these plants in their bog habitat. There are other plants, though, not far from here, with a totally different way of solving the problem, and one that is most ingenious. Right after this break, one of the deadliest killers in the bog. Now right down here is one of the more feared, well I suppose not feared because it's rather insidious hunter, but one of the most deadly hunters of this bog. This is pitcher plant, a carnivorous wildflower that devours insects to get nutrients. Now it's called pitcher plant because the leaf is shaped like a pitcher. And that shape allows the flower to capture its food. I'm going to pull this one up. It's very common through this bog. So we'll have a look inside one. Now, the first thing to look at is the inside of the leaf. Here on the top part that's open, you'll see lots of red, or actually wine-colored lines leading down. Those are visual guiding patterns for insects. There's also little hairs. These hairs do two things. They offer a grip for the insect's feet, but also they prevent the bug from crawling back out. Now, if you look really closely at these hairs, you'll see they all point downwards. As the insect travels down, these impede its progress coming back out again. So it's forced to keep on walking down farther and farther. It enters the actual pitcher itself. This part of the leaf is closed over, forming that pitcher. And inside the pitcher, as the name suggests, there is water. And that water is what drowns the insects, what kills the insects. I'm going to tear one open so you can see the inside. Here we are. Oh, this is neat. First off, here's the route the insect takes. Look at this. After it travels past the little lip here, where the hairs end, suddenly the inside becomes a smooth, slippery slide. and down slides the insect into the water where it drowns. Inside the leaf, enzymes are released, and those enzymes dissolve the insects down to little bits of black insect mush, a bit of a soup in there. And then the leaf absorbs those nutrients released from the insect bodies and adds to its diet nitrogen and phosphorus and all those things hard to come by in the bog. Now, there's a little twist in the story. In nature, whenever there's an opportunity for an animal or a plant to exploit something, it will. Because this water in the pitcher plant is full of nutrients, there are several insects that have evolved a defense against the plant's enzymes and can survive in that watery bath. And in here, you'll find little things, certain types of mosquitoes and other insects that actually can live inside that water. They're immune to the enzymes of the pitcher plant, and they have a nice soupy meal waiting for them inside that bottom of the pitcher. Now, pitcher plant was a pretty big carnivorous wildflower. All through the bog mat, there's also a much smaller flower that also devours insects. Right down here, you can see the wings of a small dragonfly that this flower has actually eaten. This is round-leaved sundew, one of the several types of sundews that grows in spots like this. Now, sundews have their traps in their leaves like pitcher plant does. But instead of having a vase to capture the insects, it's got sticky little traps. If you look closely at it, you'll see that there's little red hairs with a ball in the end. That ball is really sticky. When the insects land there, they're glued by their feet and wings and body to the leaf. As they struggle, more and more hairs get stuck to it. And in fact, in this species, once the insect is captured by the leaf, it slowly folds over, giving that insect a lethal embrace. There are shorter hairs inside the middle part of the leaf that have the enzymes that dissolve the insect down to the basic nutrients, which the leaf then absorbs. So a very tiny little plant, but a very powerful trap for insects. I love this bog. Even though a lot of the same plants are here, as we saw in the last bog, there are a few other species, including another flower that devours insects. This beautiful flower is horned bladderwort, but right over here in the water is another bladderwort, the common bladderwort, with amazing underwater traps. I'll use my net, my handy butterfly, dragonfly, and bladderwort net, and we got one. Oh, look at this. Look at this. This is spectacular. Come here. Wow. These little round sacs are actually modified leaves that are traps to capture very small animals, small insects and other small invertebrates. And how they work is really amazing. These little sacs have a little hair trigger in the front. When a small animal hits that hair trigger, the sac pops open, sucks in the water through a vacuum with the little bug intact. The trap door will close down, sealing off the insect to a very unusual fate. Enzymes are released inside the little trap, which dissolve down the small animal to its very basic nutrients, which the leaf then absorbs. Now, this bog has, in addition to the amazing carnivorous wildflowers, some very spectacular orchids. Look at this little beauty. Rose Pegonia, like all orchids, has 3 petals, one of which is specially enlarged and modified as a landing platform for insects. And it is just spectacular. Look at that. All the plants in the bog are food for a variety of animals. This 3-leaf plant is bog or buckbean. After this break, we'll meet the poison spine creature that feeds on this plant. Here we are in another floating habitat that looks just like some of the bogs we were in earlier. Even though many of the same plants are found here, it's a different habitat slightly. For one thing, the mat is heavily dominated by sedges. In the bogs, the dominant plants were some of the heath family members, like leatherleaf and Labrador tea, which are found here too in smaller numbers. Another difference is that this habitat has its water coming in, not from rainfall, but from a nearby lake. As the waters come in, they bring nutrients continuously. This habitat is a true fen. Now, fens and bogs are sensitive habitats, and wherever you walk, you always leave your prints. But you will find trails through them. Right here's a deer trail. So I generally try to walk on these to avoid damaging plants when I visit these fragile habitats. Now this fen is a very special fen because it holds two unusual animals. One is a caterpillar that devours bog bean. The other is the smallest dragonfly in North America. Right over here, all through the water, you'll see a three-leaf plant. This is bog or buckbean, and this is the food plant for that most unusual caterpillar we're trying to find right here. There are chewed leaves all through here, lots of signs. Oh, they've got to be here. Oh, there's one, a big one, right down here. Right down here, on the food plant. Look at this, look at this. Fantastic, it's huge. Oh, I'll pull back this leaf, and there it is. There's our famous caterpillar we're in search of, feeding on bog or buckbean. Let's pick it up now for a much closer view. Be very careful though, because, oh, he's a beauty. Because the beauty masks a great defense. Here he is, look at this. Wow. Wow. Beautiful, isn't it? Now you'll notice that this caterpillar is covered in beautiful branched spines. Well, those aren't just for beauty. These branched spines are actually poisonous, so they sting when they impale their would-be predator. Let's put it back to where it belongs and let it get back to its most important activities, which are eating, eating, and eating. So let's get it back now. Now, this becomes a beautiful moth called a buck moth, usually flying in September, and it flies in the daytime, which is rather strange for most moths. Buck moths are one of the silk moths, those big showy moths that include the Cecropia, the Polyphemus, the Luna, all those big beautiful showy moths. This one though is only found in 2 spots in Canada and only a handful of spots in the United States. Now, it may seem to have a very small range, and at one time it was thought to be a unique species, but recent DNA studies have shown that this caterpillar belongs to another species with a wider range that feeds on different food plants. Now, it's quite possible that a few hundred years from now, perhaps a few millennia, this caterpillar and its moth will become a brand new species. Look at that, it's a snipe. Did you see that? I think it was a snipe or a woodcock, probably a snipe though in this habitat, somewhere up over here near this mound. There's gotta be a nest. Here it is right here, right down here. Come on over, right down here behind these grasses. There is the bird's nest right there, look at that. 3 eggs, isn't that fantastic? Well, let's cover that back up and leave it alone and let her get back to it. Every habitat is full of surprises. Fantastic. Now in this fen, cedar waxwings are pretty common. They're nesting right now in the cedars around here. Beautiful birds, aren't they? There he is, he's sitting on that stem right above the water. Let's see if I can't get him. I got him, I got him, I got him. He's on the top of the net, good. Well, here it is, the tiniest dragonfly in North America and one of the smallest in the entire world. It's the elfin skimmer, it's the male elfin skimmer. You can tell by its colors, the males have this bluish-white color. In fact, they start off blue, but through time a whitish bloom called pruinosity develops all over their body. The females are more bee-like in color with black and yellow stripes on the body. But what a gorgeous little dragonfly. Very hard to find because of its small size and reclusive habits. So here we are, the tiniest dragonfly in North America, right here in the White Lake Fen. Spectacular, isn't it? Without question, bogs and fens are my favorite habitats. Part water and part land. To be able to walk on top and have the mat float under your feet. Amazing plants that grow there. Plants that devour insects for nutrients. Then the beautiful laurels and the orchids like grass pink and begonias that grow on the mats. And then of course there's the animals. Animals like gray jays and the spiny caterpillar, and just a neat variety of living things. And I think most of all, I really enjoy going to bogs and fens because there's nobody else there. In the middle of summer, you'll find plenty of people at lakes or on beaches or even on trails in the woods. But on bogs and fens, you're almost guaranteed to be alone. And that is a very special treat. Wasn't that a fantastic trip into the floating world of bogs and fens? Thanks for coming along. Join me next time for another adventure where everything we meet is wild by nature.